We're live. Andrea Duane.
Hey, Leo.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Wonderful, wonderful. Let me set up a couple of things here real quick. Wait for a few people to jump on.
Okay.
See, we are live and we're tagged there. This is a whole process that we have here. Okay. Welcome to Live with Leo at 5, everybody. For those of you who are coming on, and I'll keep reminding you if you have any questions during our interview, just go ahead and put them in the comment box. And if you're watching us live, please go ahead and comment live. Hi, Veronica. If you can hear me, Veronica, please let me know. A few people jumping on here. All right. Let's get started. I have a special guest here today. Super excited to have her on. She's a wonderful, wonderful friend of mine. We have been in so many great business masterminds, business seminars. We are full on out there working our butts off. Andrea Duane. Andrea is as a job, she is a real estate agent like me. However, she runs a pretty great team up there in the, remind me, but in the Folsom,
Dorado
Hills area. I'm not as familiar with that, but it's relatively close to Sacramento, that kind of area there. And she's huge over there in real estate. If you guys either know somebody who lived there, or if you thinking about moving to a more beautiful, wild scenery. That's kind of where she's at. But today we're going to talk about a few other things I think will interest all of you, because it regards food, it regards relaxing, regards our passion and all that kind of stuff. And please give a warm welcome to Andrea. And so Andrea, I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about yourself other than what I can talk about, because I know there's a lot of layers there to Andrea. Tell us about your background, your family, and all that good stuff.
Okay. Well, hi. I'm super happy to be here talking with you, Leo, and all of your friends. So it's kind of an honor. So Leo is right. We met several years back at different real estate events and just immediately connected just because Leo's good people. And so I work in the Northern California area, like Leo said. I'm in Northern California, about 45 minutes east of Sacramento. And it's really like the Golden Foothills. So we have great weather most of the year. It does get warm here, but I am very much a fair weather friend. So I like it when it's hot and not so much when it's cold. It did rain a lot today, so good for the garden, good for the soil. But besides being a real estate agent, which I've been doing for the last 16 years, I'm a mom. I have 3 girls, all of which are either graduated from college or are in college. And they all luckily live near me, so we feel pretty lucky and pretty blessed just having our kids nearby. So I grew up actually in Southern California. I was born in Southern California, and my grandpa lived and my grandma lived in Azusa, for those of you that know where that is, in the LA area. And my grandpa had the most amazing garden, and he grew everything. And I just remember going as a little kid, harvesting carrots and beets and radish and lettuce, you name it. And that was kind of my first experience and exposure to the wonderful world of gardening. And from then on, I guess I was kind of just hooked on that. And so ever since we've owned a home, which has been over 20 years, we've always had our own garden in our yard. And so I just love gardening. I love flowers and trees and nature. And so I thought when Leo said, hey, do you want to come on and talk about something? And I was like, sure, I'll talk about gardening.
It's super interesting. First of all, you know, we don't talk about some of this stuff as much over the time that we've known each other, because it's always been like we have so much to share with each other on the business side of it, that we're always clicking, you know, in that world. And we forget about some of these other more personal family passions that we have. And just listening to you, which I didn't know, you know, where your gardening, you know, roots came from. And I was just reminded, I was raised by my grandparents, and my grandfather was both a professional executive chef and a home gardener, you know. And so my fondest memories in his later years, he didn't speak much, but he would always be out. When I get up in the morning, he's always out in the garden. And I can remember, and I have this image of him always tending to the garden every day. And so he didn't try to involve us or anything like that. He just did his thing. But it made a huge impression on me because I saw him doing it every single day. And you know, in Taiwan, where I'm from, we were in a little apartment, and all we had was this window with a I don't know what you call it, but it kind of goes out a little bit, where you can put like a little area where you can put
Like a garden box or something.
yeah, literally like a garden window. You know, it's not very big, probably the size of like a 4-by-4 table, and he had it filled with pots, and every day he would tend to it. And so so I have that kind of background, but somehow I didn't get the thumb. My thumbs didn't translate.
Sometimes my thumbs are brown. I mean, sometimes you have really good, sometimes stuff just doesn't go your way. And I think that's just life, gardening. And you kind of just, sometimes things sprout and take, and other times they don't. And we've had good luck with some crops, and sometimes not so good luck with things. And that's just part of
Yeah,
like
yeah.
gardening life.
Yeah, and in California, I mean, literally all of California, you can grow so much, and especially like where you are and where we are down here too. But we're just so metropolitan down here. But anywhere in California is such an agricultural state, so we're super lucky with the weather. You know, it's always sunny to grow anything that you want. So you have owned a home for a long time, and you guys always been in the gardening and stuff like that, and that has I'm assuming progressed over the years, you know, and you guys have grown that more and more. And so tell us how, what kinds of things you enjoy growing, and what kinds of things that you think that other people, if they're getting into it for the first time, or thinking about doing it, what they could maybe start with, just some of the preliminary stuff, since you have so much experience there.
Yeah, I would love to. So for us, it's important to me, but it may not be important to someone else. But I feel like if you're going to grow your own food, you should, if you can, take the steps to grow your food organically. And there's some steps that you want to do at the beginning to ensure that you're continuing to grow an organic product, because you can grow it at a fraction of the price that you would buy it at the grocery store. And if you're going to take the time to grow your own food and it's going to taste so much better, you might as well do yourself a favor, as well as the environment a huge favor, by growing organically. So you don't have to have a huge space. Like, we have a pretty good sized space in our front yard that we have recently expanded on. But you know, you want to start with organic seeds or organic starters. But before you do that, your soil is super, super important. Please do not overlook your soil. You can get organic soil. So organic humus, organic compost would be so good, because it's full of nutrients, and you want to feed your plants, because all of the goodness that you're growing from comes from your soil. And then you want to have a really sunny place in your yard to grow, because plants love a lot of sunshine. So, but if you want to grow cooler weather crops, depending on like your zoning, then you can. Here it gets really hot, and so you have to know like staggering. And that's a great thing too about gardening. You can literally garden year round in California, Leo. Like you said, like our state is just so diverse. There's just different crops for every season. So people think a lot of times like, oh, I'm only going to grow my summer garden, but you can grow a fall and winter garden too. So I'll talk about that, like what you can grow there. But people struggle with the thought of like, how do I grow food organically? And like if I have bugs and pests and things in my garden. And so there's organic ways of getting rid of pests and weeds. So you can mulch, you can just put down newspaper. Like it doesn't have to be expensive to garden organically. It just takes maybe a little bit more creativity. It takes, you know, a little more time, but it's so rewarding when you do it. So, you know, soapy water and different sprays like that can decrease the types of bugs, and then more beneficial bugs will actually find their way into the garden and they will help you out as well. So if you're going to start gardening, I would definitely say try your hand at trying to do organic gardening first and foremost, because it's good for you and good for the environment. And that's my jam.
Oh, that's super awesome. I love some of the things that you said so much, especially the organic stuff, because you know, when I go to the grocery store, all I want is organic. That's all I want. I don't care if it's, you know, some of it, people say that it's not fully organic. Well, it's better than nothing at all. Better than if it didn't say organic at all. And,
right.
you know, I was just at Whole Foods, and somebody, you know, was showing me some of the stuff that like frozen vegetables and stuff like that were actually packaged and like shipped here from China, and that's not really very very good for you. So it was really super scary. So like the more that those things happen, you know, the more we're thinking like, hey, if I just go out in my backyard, front yard, whatever, I just pick something, I know what it took to grow it, I know what was there, I know what it put into it, you know, sun and water, I know what I'm gonna get. So there's like literally farm to like, you know,
Table.
kitchen table, kitchen counter, and I just love. I can't imagine anything else, you know, for our future. When I was in France, that's how they did things. I was like, well, how come I never knew this, you know?
Yeah.
And so, so I think it's really, really important that if for any other reason, just having some guaranteed, you know, good organic, you know, food that hasn't been transported for days or picked early, or, you know, you don't
I was
know.
just going to say, like, you know, it's fresh and ripe and you're not picking it before it's actually fully got all of its good nutrients and everything. So spot on, Leo.
Right. So starting with, you know, organic seeds and organic soil and fertilizer, whatever it is that you're going to get to grow it, is super, super important. And once you start that, then you can plant whatever else, and it'll all grow from the same bed, and, you know, things like that.
Right, right. And the health benefits of eating organically and not putting those pesticides in your body. And then also you're eating more seasonally, which is supposed to be healthier for you as well, eating with what is in season. So you're not eating things, right? If you kind of go with like the vata, the pitta, like all of that sort of a philosophy, then you're eating with what nature would normally provide for your body and seasonally. So I just think you're not taxing your body as much by eating something that seasonally is like the opposite of.
You know, that's really important, because I've noticed, because I go to the farmer's market and things either are available or not available. And once you've gone through a year or two, you get to see what comes and what goes. And what I noticed, for the most part, I've been going for probably the last 8 years or so. So I'm, you know what I can expect and things like that. But so fruits and vegetables that grow abundantly, like berries and things like that. Watermelon, you know, grows like this time of the year, you know, to the beginning of the summer and stuff like that. These are the times when you're most active, and these are the times when we have the most daylight, you know. Because it gets dark till 7 or 8, you know, sun's up at like, you know, 5 o'clock in the morning. So we tend to need more energy. And a lot of these fruits and vegetables are growing this time of the year. And basically nature knows like, okay, when the winter time comes and we're getting less sun, less things are growing in that time, then it's time to like eat other type of stuff that do grow, probably more leafy greens and things like that, more toward the winter time. So I think just being part of that rhythm, makes you feel better. And when like I can't wait. We don't have farmers market right now because it's shut down because of the virus, which is like I'm super sad. Like I've never had this before, and like I remember like right now, this month in May, what we get is those Keats mango. Have you ever had those?
Oh, what kind of mango?
Keats, Keet.
I don't think so.
Oh, you need to look them up. So they grow locally here. They're literally like this big. They're size of a Nerf football.
Wow. Okay.
And they grow here, and they're only available for like 3 years of the entire year. And you open them up, and they're like the juiciest thing ever. Like if you remember, like I don't know if you've been to Hawaii before, but when you eat the fruits there, like papayas and their mangoes, and like super juicy. It's like that, but it's huge. Like, and I spent like $4 per mango.
Right. But it's worth it if it's this big. I mean, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, it's like a meal, it's like a giant meal. And you can buy them. And I usually like buy them 3 at a time, make sure like I check the firmness so that every week I can have one, So anyway, my point is that like I remember like every year when I get to have what, and my body wakes up to those
Right.
things.
Right.
So your biorhythm is like super important because of that. So hopefully that helps you guys like know when if you guys are going to garden, like expect certain things to come and go. And it's super exciting when those things come out when you expect them, right?
Yes, and it's so exciting to watch. Like it's super satisfying to most of the time, I would say like 90+% of the things we grow from seed. We direct sow. Rather than purchasing plants. And so, which is totally fine. You could do any of the above, just as long as you're growing your own. That's kind of my hashtag, kind of grow your own. And the other thing that you can do when you're gardening, especially in the summer, when you have fast growing crops like radishes, those are super easy to grow. It's like a no fail sort of thing, but they are ready really fast. And so you could do succession planting. So carrots are easy to succession plant. The radishes, really easy things that you're going to pull out of the ground very quickly. And then you can just sow more right nearby. And that way you continue to be able to have, like you said, right, you check the firmness of your mango so you can have it here, 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 and here. So you can do that with your planting in your garden and just do succession planting maybe every 2 or 3 weeks, and then you're harvesting over and over and over again. So that's something to keep in mind when you're planning or planting your garden. And then some of the easiest things to grow are like zucchini, carrots, tomatoes, radishes. Really fun things that I think people don't realize that they can grow is garlic. And that's right? It's super satisfying. It's a long season crop. For us here, we plant it kind of in November, and then we would typically be harvesting it probably in like March, April. And what's awesome, and what I love to do, because I am a super like seed nerd, I'm just a garden nerd. So you can get the seeds from honestly like any of your organic produce that you purchase at the store, or someone grew something, and dry your own seeds, and then you can replant them next season. But if you get a clove of garlic, every single clove will become a bulb. So that's how you plant your garlic. You just take a clove, stick it in the ground, cover that up, and then it grows and grows for several months. Like I said, it's about a 6-month crop. And then once the tops start to brown, that's when it's ready. And then you just pull it up, and then you hang them by the stalks. Hang them in your garage though, because you will really be
Well,
You
at
leave
least,
fighting away the vampires, no problem.
yeah, yeah, I was gonna say. By October, no vampire will be coming.
Yeah, yeah, that they dry pretty quick. I mean, it gets warm here, so we just have like drying racks, and we'll just hang them. Honestly, you could just use, a pant hanger and tie them up and hang them in the garage where they're warm. And but it's really fun and satisfying to grow simple things like that. And now you have, a dozen cloves of garlic, and it's your own harvest. So
I did not know that, and I did not know that you can just pull a clove and you can regrow from it. I do know, like, so one of the things that I learned, and people might be interested in this, is that whatever fruits, and mostly fruits that you like, you can almost always take the seed. Like if you had a really, really good orange of some sort that you really like, that enjoy more than other types of it. There's so many types of oranges. There's little ones, big ones, for juicing, for eating, for whatever. And if you like something, you can save the seeds, and you don't have to plant them right away. You can, they dry, you can leave them in the bag, and then you can plant them at some point and have this tree of, like, basically, money tree of oranges. They keep paying you, all this money you pay. I think it's what, like $3-4 a pound for oranges. You can juice them, you can, so many things you can do.
yeah, no, it's so true. I mean, it's just, I think you'll start looking at your food differently. So like when you go to the farmer's market and you're like, oh, I'm going to scrape out these seeds from my, acorn squash, save like a handful, dry them, and then in the fall, plant them,
Yeah, so I see a whole bunch of you guys are on right now. If you guys have any questions, feel free to put it in the comment box, and we'll try to get to it a little toward the end so that we can keep our conversation going. See a bunch of people. Hi, Shane. Hi, Roddy. Hi, Michaela. Hi, Rick. I know one of the top things I wanted to talk to you about is regarding gardening in small spaces, because here we're a little bit more densely packed. And I know, at least for myself, I have a little patio. It's probably like, I want to say maybe 10 by 10 or 14 by 10 or something like that. It's not super tiny, but it's still small enough where, like, hey, we need to do some management as far as what we can do. So what are some tips that you can give people that have smaller patios like I do?
Yeah. So some things you can do is to grow different types of like plant formation. So think of that, like how does this particular plant grow? So maybe you're going to grow pole beans instead of bush beans, right? So pole beans instead of bush beans. You can do something as simple as, if you can get some bamboo or some sticks, like it does not have to be fancy, your setup, creating just a simple grid that you can tie together with honestly anything, twine, tabs from the grocery store, like just get creative so that you have some sort of grid, or just put some sticks in the ground like this and then run string back and forth across it so that you can weave the beans or snap peas up there. You can also, carrots are really easy because they're very narrow. They don't take up a lot of room. Like I said, again, radishes are easy. Things that will take up a lot of room in your garden, but are super prolific, would be like zucchinis and squashes. So ours will get probably like 4 feet across by 3 or 4 feet. I mean, they're just huge. So if you have maybe a separate container, you could container garden something like that. So I would really just try and think of like, how do each of those vegetables grow, and then and that's how I would do it. And then I always say, plant like your favorite things, and then try something new, and always grow some herbs, because those are,
Yeah, for sure. Because
you can have them fresh, you can have them dried, and save them.
yeah, and I love herbs because, and I sometimes grow green onions. Is like the easiest thing to grow.
Yeah. Yeah, and they just will keep reseeding themselves. So if you just let them go, they just will reseed themselves, which I love also.
So what I love doing, like with herbs, we only need herbs when, like, we're cooking, like, oh, we need some little rosemary, or we need a little dill or a little basil or something like that. Now, how wonderful is it to just go and pick what you need to use like that night, and then just
Right.
throw it in your pot, throw it in your dish, or it's garnish, whatever it is. And you don't have to think of like, oh, I don't have to just have to make sure buy this at the store before I go home and make dinner and all that stuff. So herbs are like it's like the most satisfying thing to pick because you're like, oh my God, it smells so good. Let's get it in my food. Um,
Mm-hmm.
because I used to buy a lot of herbs and I put it in the fridge and they don't last very long. They wilt and all that kind of stuff. When it's growing in your yard, it doesn't wilt. You just pick it and use
Yeah,
it.
it just keeps going. And don't be afraid to let it go to seed. So I don't know, some people may know this and some people may not. If you like cilantro, or even if you don't like cilantro, but you like coriander, coriander is literally the seeds of the cilantro. So you can actually have a twofer in cilantro, and then let your basil go to blossom on some. And then, so when they have those little white blooms around them, let those grow and then cut them and dry them, because inside those little blooms are the seeds for your next basil plant for next year.
Oh, okay. I was propagating, was cutting them like in the branches, where
Yeah.
they so that I can put them in water, let the roots grow, and then
Yes.
go.
Oh my gosh, I'm so addicted to sprouting in water.
You have like cups everywhere of your spreads and stuff. So super cool. So there's definitely a lot of things you can do with smaller space. I think smaller spaces don't really deter you from any kind of garden.
Yeah. And some other cool things that I've actually seen that I haven't done myself, but like if you have a wooden fence, I've seen where people have created smaller planter boxes and literally attached the planter boxes and staggered them on their fence so that you can actually grow vertically as well as having something down low. So there's all kinds of different ways to kind of stagger and create different abilities to garden in a very small space.
Yeah, and if you guys want, like if you're like super lazy to set stuff up, you can find on Amazon or wherever these vegetable or grow.
Oh, those vegetable towers. Oh my gosh, that thing you posted, Leo, like that sphere, that was so cool.
Oh yeah, that was like a custom homemade thing. But by the way, I mean I'll remind you guys again later. But Andrea has a gardening um, Facebook group that she has where she shares all kinds of stuff and progress of her garden and what's growing and just sharing a lot of information. There's a lot of people sharing stuff there too. So if you like gardening, I think I have the link in the post. You can go and check it out and join it. Just start have some conversation. Even if you're not growing right now, it's just cool to like see what other people are doing, and then maybe it'll spark some motivation and interest to kind of do something. But literally, it's so easy, like a few minutes a day to get started, and then you just see if you like it or not, and if it really piques your interest and you want to do more, then you can do more. If you want to scale back or whatever you want to do. But that's one place you can get started is go to your group.
Yeah, yeah, and get feedback. People ask questions like, hey, do you have this kind of pest? How do you treat it? Or are you having this problem? I mean, we just chatted about like how to get rid of snails and slugs like organically. And so, kind of what's growing and just get tips and inspiration from others. Yeah, it's cool. It's been fun.
Yeah, so I want to talk to you a little bit more, not necessarily so much about which we talked about, like a lot of gardening stuff, and you can get tips like forever till your head falls off. You can get all kinds of tips. It's just endless amount of tips and things that you can do. But let's talk a little bit more about like health-wise and how it impacts. I mean, more specifically, you've been doing it for a long time. What you see is a difference for you as a lifestyle, how it helps other people, how it helps your mental wellness and that kind of thing. I know that you guys recently also started a project of growing, I think you might have mentioned it earlier on your front yard. Maybe you can also kind of talk about that process as well. But more what I wanted to kind of ask you was regarding what your thoughts about mental wellness surrounding all this gardening and eating your own labor, basically, and your thoughts and stuff.
Yeah, sure. So I've been a vegetarian for about 30, years now, and my husband and I raised our 3 daughters as vegetarian. I don't eat fish, but my kids grew up kind of eating fish. So we've grown up, for the most part, mostly plant-based. So my feeling is coming from that perspective. But I think overall, in terms of like mental health, what I think gardening gives the gardener or gives someone is time outside that maybe would not be there. It's like when you get engrossed in anything, it's almost as though your mind can wander. So maybe you like to go and walk or run, or once you kind of get into this, it's almost like a moving meditation. You just kind of get into the zone of this space, and you're caring and you're tending to these living, growing things, and it brings you joy and so much satisfaction. And the vegetable blossoms are so beautiful. Like if you've ever grown okra, the okra blossoms are so beautiful. And so just taking time to like marvel at the process, right? Watching your food grow and seeing the bees and the butterflies and the hummingbirds and just the life and activity that is happening like right in front of you, that wouldn't be there otherwise if you weren't tending and creating this garden space. So I just feel like that mental bit and just enjoying that aspect of gardening, it's definitely work too. You know, sometimes you're begrudging, so you're like, am I winning the battle with these weeds or am I not?
Well, you're managing nature, you know, and you're and all this stuff that's growing is exposed to all different kinds of nature that come and go. Could be nice things like bees are pollinating, they're coming around because the certain blossom flowers or something like that. Or it could be another nice thing is, you know, ladybugs who come around and, you know, help with stuff, pests and other things. But then, you know, there's other bad things. You know, some animals might be wandering around, birds or whatever might be eating your tomato.
The bowls, and yes, exactly. So there's, you know, there's the pests that you have to deal with, and the
So you're trying to like manage this mini little
unique ecosystem. Yes, totally.
to the world, you know. So you have to take that, you know, with a grain of salt and have patience and have acceptance and, you know, all that kind of stuff that comes with it.
Yeah, and it's incredibly joyful to be able to share your harvest with others. So I think that's another facet that I think maybe gets overlooked, is that I often bring extra vegetables and things to the office, to my staff, to my neighbors, to my friends. When we go over to their house for dinner, when you can go to someone's house for dinner, I will always bring, if our garden is growing, something homegrown, and everyone is just always like, oh yes, or, you know, we bring a half a dozen eggs or whatever, and you know, it's just special.
Yeah, I think so. So you show up at your friend's house instead of a nice bottle of wine. You're like, I got zucchini.
Yes, exactly. Some herbs, some cucumbers, some zucchini, some tomatoes. I mean, like, who is going to like balk at like, and I present it sweet, like, you know, it's not just like here's some.
Yeah, I showed a home over the weekend in one of our luxury market here, and it was this property was 40,000 square feet of land, but then it's a 7,500 square foot home, and it was the architect that come in and built it inspired by the Italian countryside. So they brought in marbles from Italy and Greece. They brought wood and beams from Italy, like all kinds of materials they brought, which is, you know, gorgeous inside. But the reason I mention this is that the property backs a slight hill, just a slight, not one that goes like straight up, but you know, just like a little undulation. And they had a vineyard. you
Oh,
know. Yeah, and so I have to take a picture and show you guys, but you could. There's probably, I want to say maybe 40 40 grapevines, you know. So it's quite big. It's not like one of your like little corner one where you got like two
hmm.
two grapevines, but this is pretty substantial. And so like when you're walking through, you literally feel like you are like an Italian
Yeah, like in the
countryside,
Tuscany.
something like that. And that house was built about 8 years ago, and it's about time. Like now, I'm like, hey, you should buy this house so that the grapes are going to start growing. You can start making wine. But it's so satisfying that I don't even own it or tend to it or anything like that. But just imagining, stuff growing and tending to it, and having the fruits of the labor, grapes or whatever, whether or not you make wine, you might even be able to sell the grapes to some local winemakers, and they can make something out of it. But just the whole scene just makes you feel like you're so in touch with nature, and you're so in touch with how our civilization really even started, because of all this stuff that we're growing. So it's absolutely gorgeous. Uh, but I imagine, like, people with those kind of passions and putting that kind of stuff in. So speaking of that, tell us about your latest front yard project.
So that's been a labor of love. So when we bought this house that we're in right now, was about 9-ish years ago, and it had a huge, we're a corner lot and it kind of pies. So we have a big, huge front yard, and more of a narrow angled backyard. And we have a side yard in our front that was an RV access. We don't have an RV, and so it didn't make any sense for us to keep that space, but it made perfect sense for us to put our garden there. And so we became front yard gardeners instead of backyard gardeners. And over the years, we've changed and reworked the garden. And so we actually just recently rebuilt some pretty awesome garden beds. Kudos to my husband. I gave him, like, this is my vision. This is how I'd like to see them. So we have 8 raised beds. One cool feature, because I am a super conserve everything. What we put in were these little knobs, and you can turn each garden bed off if you wanted. So the drip system you can have on or off. So if you have like a couple beds that don't have anything planted in, then you don't have to water something that doesn't have anything growing in it. So that was a cool new addition, was just that simple little valve that we didn't have before. And so we just got it planted, so we're a little bit behind in some of our planting. So usually we like to try and plant like in April. So we just like early April, and we got kind of tail end of April. But things are already starting to sprout, and so it's really exciting. And then we created a fence, since it is our front yard and we are more of a rural county here in El Dorado County. We have deer and wild turkey that roam the neighborhood, and so we put up a nice fence, but it's a mesh fence, so you can see through it, and then a little garden area for flowers in front of it, so just kind of soften the garden area. So really excited. It turned out really, really nice. So
Yeah, it's gorgeous. I've seen those photos in your group, and I just can't wait to see more of them, because things are, growing. But that was one of the questions I had, like, hey, what is she trying to keep out with all the fences? What possibly could she try? And it's pretty tall, but I thought, well, maybe just rabbits or something like that. But I didn't know about.
yeah, it's deer and turkey.
But to
I do have in my mind, I want to put up a fun sign that says trespassers will be composted.
that's perfect. You should do that.
A little nerdy garden humor, but yeah, so that's what we did, and why we put up the fence, is just to deter all the hard work and labor. I know I don't really want the deer to eat it all, so that's kind of what we did. Yeah, so if you guys want to see pictures and what it looks like, it's on our Garden and Good Vibes group. So
Yeah, we got the link in the post. So if you guys are interested, definitely click on that and join. It's obviously just a community group. Feel free to share if you guys are already gardeners. I'm sure you find a really great community there. So check that out. So um, thank you so much. This has been
Yeah.
so good. I've learned so much. And
Good.
now I'm getting hungry.
I know, right? Me too. Go grow something. And don't forget, you gotta thin your seeds and just know your zone and plant good stuff. So
Yeah, I think I'm gonna make a list of all the things that I like to eat that I'm not currently already growing and figure out how to grow it.
yeah,
So,
I
uh,
like it.
and one day I'll grow like my beds, like my
You
growing.
need to grow those mangoes.
Oh my gosh, that's like a cash cow.
I
And
know. I'm wondering why you're not growing those mangoes right now if they grow in your area.
yeah, I wish I could, but one of these days I'm gonna have to share. I've taken a couple of pictures of them, but it's hard to tell how big they are when you take a picture because the scale is all wrong. But like, but like you literally like there's so much meat in there. I mean, there's a big seed too, but because it's so big,
Right.
but mostly I don't care what size they are. They're just so good. Like if they were small and I had to eat 5 of them, then I would eat 5.
Right.
So
I wish
yeah,
I could grow them here. I think it's just too hot here.
yeah. So yeah, but definitely like anything I find like at the farmers market, I like to take pictures of and show them because that's literally what you can grow, yourself.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay,
All
well,
right. Thanks for having me, Leo.
yeah, I love having you back sometime, but we'll talk more about your progress. As per tradition, well, first of all, if you guys are watching this and you guys have questions about gardening for Andrea, feel free to post and comment. But as per tradition, I always ask our guests a couple of questions. And number one is, what do you love about where you live?
What I love about where I live, well, I've lived here for 30 years. So I love that we are so centrally located. So I can drive an hour and I'm in Tahoe. I can go on the lake, we can go hiking, we can go snowboarding. There's honestly trails all over here. We have the American River here, so you can river raft, you can just go hang out by the river. We have Folsom Lake, so there's the lake, Jenkinson Lake. There's just so many things you could do. You could be in the bay in a couple hours, you could be in Napa. Um, I just love that we live a very outdoor lifestyle, even though we don't have the beach nearby. We just have a lot of good things. And then of course, all of our family live here. So um, that's kind of why I love it.
Oh, sounds amazing. Now, I've been to Tahoe, I've rafted on the American River, been to Sacramento, been to Napa, but I did not know the proximity of everything really. So if people have thoughts about like moving to that area, what's like kind of the price range that you can get um, like a median size home?
Yeah, so it's area specific, but it's incredibly affordable compared to where you live or say the Bay Area. So we get a lot of people from the Bay Area that want to move up here, one for the phenomenal schools and just the different pace of life here. So people just enjoy that you have a little bit more elbow room. There's beautiful hills and topography. So if you're in El Dorado Hills, your median price is probably around 650 to 7. If you're in Folsom, it's more like 550, 6. But of course, you have entry level, which would be condo living in Folsom or single family homes. Condos are going to be in the 3s, where single family homes will start in the 4s. And then single family homes in El Dorado Hills, probably more like 450. If you want something more rural and a little more country, then you're going to head a little bit further east and you're going to pick up some acreage, either Rescue, Shingle Springs, Bosserville, and that's going to vary anywhere from 400,000 or 500,000 all the way up to several million.
Yeah, so it sounds very doable for just a regular single family. Would be pretty nice for 500, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing super extravagant, but nice property, nice home, good to live in, young family or something like that.
Right. Great community, great environment. Yeah, it's a good place to raise your kids. So
Well, that's definitely like half of what ours is.
yeah.
So You can. I used to have a staff that wanted to move up there, and because his family's from Sacramento, and he didn't know if he could commute or not, so he put in his notice to quit. So I said, well, wait a minute, you know, we like the work and we want you to work here. Do you want to telecommute and just we'll pay for you to come down every once in a while if we need you to. And so we ended up doing that. He was making 100K here, and then, you know, living in, I think he lived in Folsom. So,
Yeah.
so I think he really made out because like he couldn't buy anything down here. He couldn't afford anything down here, you know, with
Yeah.
the cost of living at home. So that really
And that's what we see with the Bay Area. People will still work in the San Francisco and the Bay and live here just because of the phenomenal schools, the cost of living, just the lifestyle, and be able to be just a couple hours away. It kind of becomes a no-brainer. So we have a lot of Bay Area transplants in our county and in our area.
awesome.
For that exact reason, Leo.
Well, I think if people can be more mobile, more power to them, and they can have lower cost of living and make more money, then they should do it. You know, so
Exactly.
to them. You have a quote to share with all of us, so I'd love for you to share that with all our audience.
I do. I think you can always take this to heart. Is that just that you will never regret being kind?
You can always regret. You can always not regret being kind.
Yes. Yeah. You will never regret. Like, I can't remember the last time I was like, gosh, I wish I wasn't as nice and kind. Like, you'll never regret it being nice to someone.
I should have been more unkind.
Yeah, you'll never regret being kind. Never. Mm-mm.
Well, Andrea, as long as I've known you, you've always been super kind, and I appreciate you. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you sharing everything with us, and you have so much to give, not only on the professional side, but also on the personal side with your gardening and passion. And you're, like you said, you're good people.
Thank you.
So everybody out there, thank you for watching. If you guys have any questions, of course, you still continue to feel free to comment. If you're watching this as a replay, feel free to comment and let us know what parts you enjoyed, or if you have anything that just comes to mind while you were watching.
Or share what you're growing in your garden, because gardeners like me want to know.
All you guys watching out there, share what you are gardening. And that way we can all see and interact, take a picture or share some pictures. That'd be wonderful. And if you really like gardening or just maybe thinking about it, join the group, Gardens and Good Vibes. And there's lots of great people there like Andrea that would be happy to either guide you or work with you on what you're and share with you what you're growing and doing. And that's it for now. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for joining me on this show. And I will see you tomorrow with another great guest. Have a good night.
Good night. Thanks, Leo, for having me.
Thank you, Andrea.